don't like to be one of those photographers that's obtrusive, that's going to be in your face. Usually when it's a reception and everybody's sitting down and eating and having a good time and chatting and stuff like that, that's the time when I'm walking around and nobody really notices me.
Why make it difficult on yourself?
Yeah, exactly.
Ladies and gentlemen, we are back in our mobile booth and we are talking to
Jill Lobley Photography.
Jill, oh, I am so glad. I've wanted to get you on the show all day.
Oh.
We interviewed Mr. Peterson.
Yes.
Peterson or Pedersen?
Pedersen.
What a great guy.
He is.
You guys have and you know what he says? He says, we're not in competition. There's a lot of photographers here.
Yes.
We're all working complementary.
Yes.
I like that.
Well, and the big thing is about photography is there's so many different styles. And brides and grooms really need to understand what they're wanting. You know, Pedersen is a completely different style of photography than what I do.
So what style do you do?
Mine is more candid, so I try and capture the moments. I like to show emotions in my photographs. So, you know, I like to catch grandma crying while you're walking down the aisle. You know, I like to, you know, catch your dad giving you that little smirk while he's dancing with you on your first dance and those types of things. The things that people don't normally catch.
Do you find it's difficult to get those, like, to position your body and you can't? No?
No, not at all.
You just glide in and glide out?
It's, the big thing about me is I don't like to be one of those photographers that's obtrusive, that's going to be in your face. Usually when it's a reception and everybody's sitting down and eating and having a good time and chatting and stuff like that, that's the time when I'm walking around and nobody really notices me, and that's when I get those shots. You know, I can be almost invisible. And, you know, the biggest thing for me is a bride and groom getting those photos and them saying, I didn't even know that happened, or oh, I didn't even know my dad did that, or, you know, I didn't think he cried, and you know, and catching those.
Yeah.
And that's what they'll remember.
Catching the excitement of the moment.
Exactly.
Living in the moment.
Exactly.
You're a photographer that's not afraid to get involved.
Yes.
You want to get in there.
Yes.
Now, I read an article the other day about what's bugging photographers is a whole bunch of people getting in front of them with smartphones.
Yes.
Does that happen to you?
It does quite a bit.
And what should we tell people?
Well, it's actually a lot of the venues now. If you're getting married in a church, a lot of the churches will tell you that you're not allowed to have mobile devices. If you do, you can get in trouble. I know that there are quite a few locations that, you know, that happens.
No kidding.
And so, if a bride and groom are really worried about a lot of people doing that, you can ask your pastor or your preacher or whoever's doing your officiant, who's doing your ceremony, just get them to say before the ceremony, if you could please make sure that the phones and the cameras are pointed away from the aisleway, because that's usually where the photographer is going to be, right? Catching people going up and down the aisle. It's the center of the wedding. You know, that's where we spend most of our time. We do get up and run around and stuff like that, but you really don't want somebody taking an iPad and, you know, sticking it out in the middle of the thing. And most officiants and stuff like that totally aren't afraid to say that. You know, they have to do announcements. They have to say, you know, if you want to get to your next location, please don't drink and drive. There might be a cocktail hour right after your ceremony while you guys are getting your photos taken. You know, there's lots of things like that. So
general housekeeping stuff,
yeah,
right?
exactly. And you know, it's just part of your everyday now, and so you have to be prepared for it. Some people, it doesn't matter. They don't care. It's part of, you know, the ambiance is, you know, it's up to you. It's a personal preference.
So if somebody's looking for a wedding photographer, in your opinion, what should be the main thing that they should look for?
The main thing should be their style, I would say. Every bride and groom is different. Some people don't like candid. They prefer Pedersen's, which is more staged. You know, there's Michael Stanton, he uses a little bit more lighting than I do. I prefer natural light, you know, less intrusive, again, you know, those types of things. So you really need to go out there and check, you know, and when you find somebody that you love,
show theater right now, if you're one of the sponsors, come on out to the foyer, please, so that you can represent your business.
Talk about obtrusive.
I know.
Sorry. So what kind of, so when they phone you up, have you heard of Trey Radcliffe?
I I've heard the name. I have.
The guy's a world famous photographer.
Yes.
What kind of camera? What's your favorite camera?
Nikon. Yes, okay. I shoot purely Nikon. Everything's Nikon.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Trey Radcliffe, 2 years ago.
Yes.
Sony.
Yeah.
Sent him one of their A7Rs, 36 megapixel.
Oh wow.
A week later, he sold every stick of Nikon stuff he has. he just walked away from Nikon.
Yeah, it happens.
They're mirrorless.
Yeah.
And I was just told by Mr. Pedersen that Nikon in Canada are going to go mirrorless in the next 5 years. They're going to phase mirrors right now.
Yeah, exactly.
Now tell me, when you have a mirror in a camera, they wear out because of mechanical. You got to flip that mirror, so you have to rebuild them.
Yes.
I never have to rebuild my Sony A7, which is nice, and it's half the weight. Now, what style, what kind of Canon or Nikon do you have?
My main shooting camera is a Nikon D2X. It's a little bit older, but it is a workhorse.
They're the standard.
Exactly. And a good example was that big windstorm we had in August. I was out shooting a wedding in Port Moody.
What?
And at the Old Orchard
are
Hall.
You crazy? And camera blows that out of your...
So, it was like 70, 80 miles an hour wind. It was just crazy. And I still managed to take a lot of photos. The bride and groom ran into a lot of complications. There was no power at the hall. Guests couldn't make it there on time because of trees and traffic and all that type of stuff. But they had enough vendors that knew what they were doing. And I can't stress it enough to find good people that know what they're doing, so that if something like that does happen, we know how to fix it.
They have a contingency plan.
Exactly. I got a review from them, and they tell me continually, they're like, if you weren't there, Jill, our wedding would never have happened. I got there at 3 o'clock and nothing was set up. Nothing was ready. I ended up having to do...
Nothing for the entire wedding?
Well, they had set up a decor and stuff like that, but the ceremony was supposed to be outside. And so they had all of the stuff, the seats, all of the archway, everything was outside. And, they had grandparents coming that were 70 and 80, and they had to go down a hill, and, I called him, and I'm like, are you wanting this outside? And he's like, no, we don't want it outside. And I'm like, okay, well, the wedding's happening in 10 minutes, and everything's still outside.
What did you do? How did you...
And so I grabbed a couple of the catering people. We went outside, grabbed everything, brought it inside, set up the ceremony inside for them, moved everything over, and managed to get it so that as soon as the bride walked there, she didn't know anything was wrong.
In 10 minutes, you saved the wedding.
Yes. And so, but I've been doing weddings for a long time. I started shooting weddings when I was 15.
Wow.
And so I've been doing it for 20 years. I might look young, but I have all the experience of all of these big time photographers. And so I have done hundreds of weddings. And so I have been through everything, storms, bad grandparents, mom and dad's fighting, people, in-laws not liking each other. And, there's always something that, every wedding is unique, right? And I always ask the brides and grooms, I'm like, is there anything that, I need to be worried about? I need to be aware about. And most of them, they're like, oh yeah, okay, well, Uncle Bob can't talk to Uncle Jeff. They can't be around each other or there's going to be a fight. And so you make a note of that. And you have to really look at your notes, and you really have to take the time for each bride and groom. I stopped booking more than one wedding on a wedding day a long time ago. I feel really, really strongly that if you have a bride and groom on that day, you need to focus your attention on them. If they need you for an additional hour or two, you need to be there.
Yes.
If they have an emergency, you need to be there. You need to help them. That's what I like to do. So, I'm a photographer, but I do tend to do a little bit more. I do go out of my way to help brides and grooms. I want them to feel comfortable. I want them to feel like I'm a friend, like I'm somebody that they've known forever, that they're comfortable with.
That's the theme I've heard over and over from the vendors. You need to help. You need to help.
Exactly.
You don't find that in a lot of industries.
No, you don't. And a lot of photographers, they think I'm only there to take pictures.
Yeah.
And you're not only there to take pictures. I've done weddings where the bride was so petrified she didn't want to walk down the aisle. Like, she was just so scared. And so you almost have to be a counselor and a therapist to help them down that aisle.
And send them Valium through the mail a week before.
You know, I remember this one bride that I had a couple years ago, and she called me in a complete panic. And she was just having panic attacks about the wedding. Everything was coming up too fast. You know, things were adding up, piling up. And I talked with her on the phone for 3.5 hours, talking her through everything, going through everything to make sure that she felt comfortable. At the end of the conversation, she was fine.
You might have saved a marriage.
And, you know, it was... But I've run into everything. I've run into, you know, bad videographers, bad DJs, bad wedding coordinators. You know, I've worked with it all. And you kind of just have to roll with the punches. And you, yourself, have to really help and be willing to go outside of your photography bubble and help them.
I've often heard all of the magic in your personal life and your business life happens outside your comfort zone.
Exactly, yes.
You think that's true?
It's totally
I think
true.
That's true.
It's like I said, you have to focus on that bride and groom on that day. It's their special day. They only have that one day.
Yeah.
You know, it is so important.
Yeah.
You know?
Screw that day up, boy.
Exactly. Like
you won't be able to sleep.
You can't.
Yeah.
You know, and the good thing about digital now is you can just shoot. So if you don't get that proper lighting, you don't get the proper, you know, whatever, you can just keep going and keep going.
Yeah. Can you get a couple of pictures of us in the booth, please, honey? That's my wife.
Oh, hello.
So talking about that windstorm, we were going to do a gig. You remember that windstorm?
Yes.
We were going to do a gig at the Surrey Night Market.
Oh.
Have you ever been?
Yes, I have.
Phoned them the next day. There's no Surrey Night Market.
Yeah, it was completely gone.
Gone.
Yeah.
Like, and I said, well, what do you mean talking about gone? No, there's nothing left. So guess what? No gig.
Yeah, I only live a few blocks from there, so I had seen the carnage.
We were there one day before. Everything was beautiful.
Yes.
I thought, okay, we'll bring this down and we'll just have a wonderful time. And so they're rebuilding it.
Yeah.
They will be back trans. Now, Jill, how can people find your company on the internet?
So it's just simply my name. So it's www.jilllobley.com.
L-A-W,
Lobley, L-O-B-L-E-Y.
Boy, do I need to figure out how to spell. It's the end of the day. I have low blood sugar, okay?
Of course.
Phone number?
Is 604 626 9209.
Okay, and you give me a card, right?
Yes, I did.
Email, how can they find you on email?
It's the same. It's Jill Lobley at me.com.
How did you get me.com?
It's one of the original Macs. When Mac first came out, I had my thing was set up, and it was one of their very first.
That's a heritage. You want to hang on to that.
So yeah, I'm going to hold on to it as long as I can.
We'll sell it for a lot of money. Jill, it was an absolute delight to have you on this show. Now, wasn't that easy?
Yes,
There's
perfect.
nothing to it. People get so nervous they can't even work up sweat. You know?
Yeah.
I mean, big deal. It's just a conversation. Thank you so much.
No problem.
I had a great time, Jill.